नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we were discussing the 18th chapter, Moksha Sannyas Yoga, the perfection of renunciation, and I believe we have completed until verse number 5. So today we are going to start from verse number 6. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, is everyone able to see my screen now?
Yeah, coming through, but we can't see the verse. Yeah.
Okay, good. So you can repeat after me. Etani api tu karmani.
Etani api tu karmani.
Sangam tyaktva phalani cha.
Sangam tyaktva phalani cha.
Kartavyaniti me partha.
Kartavyaniti me partha.
Nishchitam matam uttamam.
Nishchitam matam uttamam.
Etani api tu karmani.
Etani api tu karmani.
Sangam tyaktva phalani cha.
Sangam tyaktva phalani cha.
Kartyavaniti me partha.
Kartavyaniti me partha.
Nishchitam matam uttamam.
Nishchitam matam uttamam.
Etani api tu karmani.
Etani api tu karmani.
Sangam tyaktva phalani cha.
Sangam tyaktva phalani cha.
Kartavyaniti me partha.
Kartavyaniti me partha.
Nishchitam matam uttamam.
Nishchitam matam uttamam.
Anyone else would like to recite?
Oh, sorry. It's okay.
Etanyapi tu karmani.
Etani tu karmani.
Sang tyaktva phalani cha.
Sangam tyaktva phalani cha.
Kartavyaniti me partha.
Kartavyaniti me partha.
Nishchitam matam uttamam.
Nishchitam matam
uttamam.
Etani api tu karmani.
Etani api tu karmani.
Sangam tyaktva phalani cha.
Sangam tyaktva phalani cha.
Kartavyaniti me partha.
Kartavyaniti me partha.
Nishchitam matam uttamam.
Nishchitam matam uttamam.
Etanapi tu karmani.
Etani api tu karmani.
Sangam takta phalani cha.
Sangam tyaktva phalani cha.
Kartavyaniti me partha.
Kartavyaniti me partha.
Nishchitam matam uttamam.
Nishchitam matam uttamam.
Etani api tu karmani.
Etani api tu karmani.
Sangam tyaktva phalani cha.
Sangam tyaktva phalani cha.
Kartavyaniti me partha.
Kartavyaniti me partha.
Nishchitam matam uttamam.
Nishchitam matam
uttamam.
Etani api tu karmani.
Etani
api tu karmani.
Sangam takta phalani cha.
Sangam tyaktva phalani cha.
Kartavyaneti me partha.
कर्तव्यानीति मे पार्थ
निश्चितं मतमुत्तमम्
निश्चितं
मतमुत्तमम्
एतानि अपि तु कर्माणि
एतान्यपि तु
एतानि अपि तु
कर्माणि
कर्माणि
साङ्गां त्यक्ता फलानि च
संगं
सङ्गं
त्यक्त्वा
त्यक्त्वा
फलानि च
फलानि च
कर्मयान्ति मे पार्थ
कर्तव्यानीति मे
कर्तव्यानीति
पार्थ
मे पार्थ
निश्चितं मतम् उत्तमम्
निश्चितं
निश्चितं
मतमुत्तमम्
मतमुत्तमम् एतानि अपि तु कर्माणि
एतान्यपि तु कर्माणि
सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा फलानि च
संगं
संगं
त्यक्त्वा
त्यक्त्वा
फलानि च
फलानि च
कर्तव्यानिति मे पार्थ
कर्तव्यानीति मे पार्थ
निश्चितं मतमुत्तमम्
निश्चितं मतमुत्तमम्
उत्तमम्
Yeah, let's recite the synonyms. Etani,
एतानि
तानि
all these.
all
all
these
these
Api,
अपि
अपि
certainly.
certainly
certainly
Tu,
tu
but.
but
but
Karmani,
कर्माणि
कर्माणि
activities.
activities
activities
Sangam,
sangam
sangam
association.
association
association
Tyaktva,
tyaktva
त्यक्त्वा
renounce.
renouncing
renouncing
Falani,
falani
results.
results
Cha,
cha
cha
also.
also
Kartavyani,
kartavyani
should be done as duty.
should be done as
should be done
duty
as duty
Iti,
iti
thus.
thus
that
May,
me
made
my.
my
my
Partha,
partha
Partha
O son of Pritha.
O son of
O
Pritha
son of Pita
Nishchitam,
nishchitam
definite.
definite
definite
Matam,
matam
matam
opinion.
opinion
Uttamam,
uttamam
tamam
the best.
the best
the best
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. All these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty. O son of Pritha, that is my final opinion. Purport. Although all sacrifices are purifying, one should not expect any result by such performances. In other words, all sacrifices which are meant for material advancement in life should be given up. But sacrifices that purify one's existence and elevate one to the spiritual plane should not be stopped. Everything that leads to Krishna consciousness must be encouraged. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also it is said that any activity which leads to devotional service to the Lord should be accepted. That is the highest criteria of religion. A devotee of the Lord should accept any kind of work, sacrifice or charity which will help him in discharge of devotional service to the Lord. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine. I'll read the translation one more time. All these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Pritha. That is my final opinion. So we start with a question. Can anybody quickly mention what is the context here? What activities Krishna is talking about here?
Talking about
devotional service
there was a question about the tyag, sannyas and tyaga. So sannyas in Sankhya philosophy, they say that you should not do any duties other than just maintenance of the body, because otherwise you just get into the cycle of life and death. While in Mimamsa, it says that you should continue to do the Vedic duties prescribed as long as it helps the society and is in the devotion of the Lord. So I think right now in this verse, Krishna says that which one is better in giving the verdict on that.
Yep, we are very close. Anyone else also would like to add something? Okay. So let me, I'm
What
sorry.
was the question?
The question is, we read the translation of the verse. All these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Pritha. That is my final opinion. So we are reading the 6th verse today. So my question was, can anybody quickly mention what activities Krishna is talking about here in this verse? So this has reference to the, sorry?
Yagya Dana Tapa has been
Right.
mentioned.
Exactly. So this is in reference to Yagya, Dana and Tapa. So let me give a quick recap. So Satyendra Prabhu very nicely also summarized. So if you remember in this chapter starts with a question from Arjuna. He says, Sannyasya Mahabaho Tattvam Ichhami Veditum. No, Sannyasa Yasya Mahabaho Tattvam. So I want to know the essence of sannyas. Sannyas is renunciation, the sannyas ashram that we refer to generally. What is the essence of sannyas? What exactly is sannyas? Tattvam. Tattva is, in truth. What is sannyas in truth? And then ichhami veditum. I want to know, And then further he asks another question. Tyagasya cha rishikesha prithak keshi nishudana. So, and then he also says that I also want to know the difference between tyaga and sannyas. So he is requesting Krishna to first tell exactly what is sannyas, and then basically do a contemplative analysis between tyaga and sannyas. So he's trying to clarify two technical words. So what is the difference between two? So in response, Krishna gives a very clear answer. He says that basically giving up the kamya karma. Kamya karma is, fruitive activities which are based on, material desires. Though giving up of those activities is known as sannyas. So we know that there are two kinds of activities. One is the kamya karma, as Krishna also mentions in the verse directly, and the other is the what is the technical word that is used? I'm missing
Nitya
Nitya karma. Yeah, thank you, Mataji. So Nitya karma is basically the prescribed duties. So Krishna says giving up the kamya karma is the sannyas. So, and then Nitya karma is basically the prescribed duties. For example, for the Brahmins, even if we talk about our sampradaya, even the sannyasis has to do their chanting, they have to do their Gayatri, there are so many different prescribed activities for them. And Prabhupada also told them that, ours is a preaching, missionary movement. So spreading the Krishna consciousness is one of the prescribed duties given to the sannyasis in our sampradaya. So I don't know any sannyasi who would probably not do spreading of Krishna consciousness, the missionary activities. So prescribed duties are not to be given up. The activities that are based on material desires can be given up. And then actually Krishna in the 4th verse, he makes a very clear statement. So first he says that actually some people say that all the activities should be given up, including the Nitya karma, because, the karma binds, it binds us. And then he says there are some other people who says that the Nitya karma should not be given up. So, and then Krishna says, now hear about me, about my final opinion. So he says, Nishchayam shrunu me tatra tyage bharata sattama. And then he uses an excellent adjective, Purusha Vyagraha. He says, oh, tiger among men. This is the only reference to Arjuna as tiger among men. Krishna had used Purushottama for himself. In the 15th chapter, the theme of Purushottama comes frequently. In the 18th chapter, although Krishna is the best, but he says, oh, tiger among men, tiger. So here Acharyas explain the context is that, Arjuna is standing on a battlefield and he is talking about taking renunciation. He wants to run away from the battlefield. So Krishna is reminding him that you are tiger among men, and a tiger never runs away from a battlefield. So he says, now hear about hear my final opinion about this. That is what Krishna had said in the 4th verse. And in the 5th verse, Krishna had said, Yagya dan tapaha karma na tyajyam karyam evatat. Na tajyam. Yagya dan and tapa should not be given up. And then further he explains, Yagyo danam tapaschaiva pavanani manishinam. He says that, manishinam is, very elevated souls, very perfected souls. They are called as manishinam. Prabhupada translates Manishinam as great souls. So Krishna says that Yajna, Dan and Tapa actually purifies even the great souls. They are actually already purified, but by performing these three activities, Yajna, Dan and Tapa, they get further purified. And how do we understand this? Suppose we clean the temple hall with a broom. Very nicely we clean the temple hall. And then we bring a very powerful vacuum cleaner. And then we put the vacuum cleaner, and then we, after we apply the vacuum cleaner in the temple hall, we see the vacuum cleaner bag has collected a lot of more dust. So actually the temple hall was cleaned, but when a powerful vacuum cleaner came, it actually further cleaned the temple hall. See any dust even before applying the vacuum cleaner, but after applying the vacuum cleaner, we could see that the vacuum cleaner bag had collected a lot of dust. So in that context, Krishna says that Yajna, Dan and Tapa should not be given up. It can even purify the those who are already purified. And now in the 6th verse, Krishna is giving the conclusion of that discussion that had started from the 1st verse. So here Krishna says all these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty. O son of Pritha, that is my final opinion. Nishchitam matam uttamam. So Uttama, Prabhupada translates Uttama as the best, and which is correct. So Uttamam actually, Tama means ignorance. Tama means darkness. Tama, the mode of ignorance we say, right? Tamoguna. So Uttama means that which can take us beyond darkness, beyond ignorance. Uttama. So that is the best. So these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. So Prabhupada also explains that sometimes a person may have to perform certain sacrifices which are based on kamya karma, which are based on fruitive activities. But we should not perform these kind of activities, yajna, dan and tapa, for some specific result. We should perform them as a matter of duty because they are prescribed in the scriptures. That is why we should do it. So now, why is it that we should do it with as a matter of duty and not as a based on certain material desires? Because actually, so the discussion here is that should the activity itself be given up or the results should be given up? So now, if say for example we have to treat a disease, so the disease has certain symptoms and there is a disease itself. So if suppose a person may have a tumor in the head and he may be getting a headache because of that. Now, if he take a pill like what is that? The pain medication that will suppress the headache, but will it treat the tumor? No. So like that, Krishna is explaining that giving up the disease here is binding. We get bound to the material world. So, getting bound is the disease and doing the activity is just the symptom. But actually, what binds us is not the activity itself. It is the motivation by which we are doing the activity. It is our mind. If the mind is attached to the results of that activity, that basically binds us. Prabhupada says, in one of the, in the 8th chapter, in the verse where Krishna says, Mai arpit mano buddhir. So Prabhupada writes there that we work not by our body, but we work by our mind and intelligence. Basically, we first, whatever we want to do, first that activity comes to our mind, right? So if our motivation is based on certain fruitive results, then that is the actual problem. So our the motivation should not be based on doing getting the result for the activity. It should be based on the duty. That is what Krishna is explaining. So Krishna also, if you see regularly, Krishna has been talking about offering mind and intelligence to Krishna. It starts from the 7th chapter. He says Mai asakta manaha, make your mind attached to me. Then further in the 8th chapter he says Mai arpit mano buddhir, offer your mind and intelligence to me. And then in the 12th chapter he says abhyasa yogena tato mai ichhaptum dhananjaya, by practice develop a desire to attain me. Now desire is a product of mind. Now we may say that desire comes from the soul. It is the soul actually that desires, but actually our desires of the soul get influenced by mind. when we see different sense objects, the mind contemplates on those sense objects, and then we get a desire to obtain that sense object. So, even though it is the soul that is desiring that a particular sense object, but it is getting influenced by mind. Therefore, Krishna basically says that what is to be purified is your mind and intelligence. It is not that the activity should be given up. The activity has to be done as a matter of duty. So giving up the activity is not right. And further, Krishna is going to describe the sannyas in different modes. So in the 5th verse itself, Krishna had said that sannyas is actually in the sannyas is described in 3 different modes. And further in the 6th verse, Krishna speaks that these activities should be done as a matter of duty. And now he's going to describe how sannyas, what is the 3 different kinds of sannyas in 3 different modes. So before we move on to the next verse, are there any questions or comments about what we just discussed?
Yeah. So, Ganapati Govind, what did you use that powerful vacuum cleaner reference to within?
So Krishna says in the 3rd verse that, Yagya Dan Tapa Pavanani Manishinam, Yagya Dan and Tapa can purify even the great souls. So great souls are already purified, but it further purifies them. So just as, a room might be already clean, with our naked eyes, we can see that the room is clean. But when we put a powerful vacuum cleaner, it will gather more dust from the room.
So Yajna Dana Tapa is like that, is what
like that, like the vacuum cleaner, it will further purify us. But Krishna says that the Yagyadan Tapa has to be based on duty, not on it should not be based on, Kamya Karma. It should not be based on some material desires. So that is the key.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Well, what is your duty?
Say that again, Prabhuji. What is
one's duty? Do people have different duties, or do we all have the same duties?
Right. The duties are prescribed in the scriptures. So, say for example, for Brahmanas, it is mentioned that they have to perform, say, not in the current context, in the current society context, but Agni Shoma Yagya, they have to perform, they have to light the fire, they have to perform Sandhya Vandan every single day. So those are the prescribed duties. So those those activities are not based on fruitive desires. They are coming as a, as a prescribed duty from the scriptures for the Brahmins.
Okay, you said not in today's society. Well, what about in today's society? What's our duty?
So our duty, so for example, if we have Brahmins now in our movement, so we do the 3 times Gayatri in a day. So that is a prescribed duty. On top of our regular sadhana, we also have to do the Gayatri mantra that we practice. So that is like a prescribed duty for us.
What if you're not a Brahmin?
So if you have renounced the word, basically the fruitive activities, then as I mentioned earlier, so for the sannyasis, it is mentioned that besides the regular sadhana that is done by the sannyasis in our movement, in our tradition, in our sampradaya, at least in ISKCON, if we don't generalize it to the bigger Gaudiya Vaishnava community. So in our tradition, sannyasis have to do their regular sadhana, which includes chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, following the 4 regulative principles, practicing their Gayatri. Besides that, they also have to preach positively about Krishna consciousness. So that is like a prescribed duty for the sannyasis.
I guess my question is, what's the prescribed duty for the average person who's just has a job, has a family, and what's his duty?
His duty is to maintain his family. If a person is having a particular job, his duty is to, do good in his job, do it perfectly, at least put his best effort. So
give
those
in
are
charity.
right. Yagya, and tapa, those are also prescribed duties, right?
how is that going to help him in Krishna consciousness?
Now, if he is in Krishna consciousness, if he has that motivation, then he can offer it to Krishna, at least offer the results of the work to Krishna, if not the work itself. Offering the work itself to Krishna becomes bhakti, but offering the results of the work may or may not be bhakti. Again, we have had a discussion about it earlier, but that will help him in progressing in Krishna consciousness. But please add anything, Prabhuji, if you have something in mind.
What about chanting Hare Krishna?
Yeah, for the devotees, yes. But you asked about a regular person who has a regular job. You didn't mention about devotees.
Hare,
I was talking about I meant the devotees who just
Okay.
have regular jobs and they're not Brahmins. They may be initiated, they may not be initiated.
I didn't catch that you're
I'm
talking about
asking for the
devotees.
people. I'm asking for the people who are on this
Call.
call, maybe on stage, because the non-devotees aren't going to be watching you.
Right. Okay, I understand. So for us, the prescribed duties are following the 4 regulative principles, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra nicely. If we are initiated, at least 16 rounds. If we are not initiated, whatever commitment we have made, minimum commitment. Some people who have not they might be chanting 10 rounds, 12 rounds, 4 rounds, whatever. So at least that whatever commitment we have made, and then besides that, offering that becomes the kind of a sacrifice, chanting. Tapa is basically following the 4 regulative principles, and then dana is offering the fruits of your work to the temple for Krishna conscious activity. We have that World Gita Day coming up. People can sponsor Bhagavad Gitas. That will also be like a charity in Krishna consciousness.
And yajna is chanting of the holy name, right?
Right. Yajna is the chanting of the holy names. Tapa is following the 4 regulative principles. And dana is basically giving your fruits of your work to offering it for Krishna's service. Prabhu, please add anything if you think you have something in mind.
I think you've finally answered my question.
Okay. Any other comments, Prabhuji, if you would like to make? Anything that you would like to add?
No, I don't have anything else.
Okay. So should we move on to the next verse if nobody has anything? I think Rasraj Prabhu wanted to add something. Rasraj
yeah,
Prabhu,
I just wanted to say that, right? I mean, the same context, right? The duty, right? Like in the Bhagavatam, in the first chapter, first canto, second chapter, the same thing has been discussed, right? The sages of Naimisharanya is asking the question, okay, what is the ultimate good for the people in general in Kali Yuga? Then Sutta Goswami answered, Sabai pumsa paro dharma yato bhakti radokyaje ahi tuki apriyata yayatma suprisiddhati. Means, what is the parodharma? Parodharma of the supreme occupation, dharma of all humanity is that by which man can attain loving devotional service unto the transcendence of Lord. So whatever duty the human being is performing, if it is it's meant for pleasing the Lord, that's the ultimate duty of the human being. That's what Sutta Goswami says in the first book. Just wanted to add.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. That's a nice comment. So we had discussed in the past that Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes that there are 4 kinds of motivation with which people approach God. The lowest is fear, then the next higher than that is desire, then we have duty, and then finally it is love. So what we are trying to do is develop love for Krishna, and that is what Krishna also says in the 12th chapter, Abhyasa yogena tato mam ichhaptum dhananjaya. Basically he says develop a desire to attain me. So desire, we can attain desire for a person when we love that person. So we are trying to develop that love for Krishna. So that's a very good reference, Prabhuji. Thank you. So I'm moving on to the next verse now. which is the 7th verse. So let's
Hare
see if
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu, go ahead.
Sorry, Prabhu. I just wanted to ask one additional question. So, in the current context, Brahmanas, or maybe within ISKCON community, devotees who are Brahmanas by second initiation, so should they take up jobs for which they receive salaries in return, or in the earlier context, it would be more like Vaishyas or Sudras who used to have salaried jobs, and Brahmanas used to live by alms or donations, and they most of the time they used to engage in either religious activities or preaching. So what profession should such Brahmanas take up in the current context? Should they be more like teachers, if at all they have to take up salaried jobs, or should they? Is it okay for them to work in the corporate sector as salaried employees?
Okay, that's a good question. I'll let Pyari Prabhu answer that question. Prabhuji, would you like to answer that?
Can he repeat his question so my husband can hear?
I was just washing a plate. Not
Okay.
my plate. Well, my plate, but not a plate I eat off of. It's a plate for my tilak, and I had it soaking in vinegar and salt, and just like I tell everybody what I'm doing, and I just thought I should wash it, so I stepped away for a minute. So I don't know what the question was.
So his question is, in the current context, what should be the duty of a Brahmin? In earlier days, Brahmins were not allowed to work for a salary, but nowadays we see the devotees do work for a salary, which are like devotees who are Brahmin initiated. They work regular jobs, 9 to 7 or whatever, and they get a salary. So is it okay to do that, or what exactly is good for the Brahmins to do in current, for example, in ISKCON?
It's okay to do that.
Okay.
Gary would just give most of your salary to Krishna.
I mean, we have to be practical. It's not,
Right.
We don't have this Varnashram Dharma society.
Right.
We're not going to have people. You might, there are some people who, which I think the best thing is you work. And then you also, if you're second initiated, you also do deity worship. You may learn how to perform sacrifices, but not for yourself. I don't like when people do it as a business. Then it becomes impure. You're just trying to think of how you're going to make money, because that's all you're doing. So if you can be a Brahmin and really be renounced and just live in a little hut somewhere and by a river with your wife and kids.
If you can find a wife, if you can find a wife who would do that. If you can find a wife who would do that, yeah.
So if you can do that, then that's fine. But otherwise, I think I don't like when it becomes a profession where you're trying to make money. You're doing it just to make a living. I think it's fine. You have a regular job, and then you do it for preaching,
Right.
and you do it for the temple's benefit. Then that's to me more of a Brahmin.
On that note, I have to say something.
Yes.
I visited a temple, which is a very, very extremely auspicious temple in Mulki in southern India. It's a Narasimha temple, and it's well known for its auspiciousness, and it has enough money coming in, it's run very well, and all the pujaris are doing very well. And the pujari of the temple, it was related to my aunt, because my aunt comes from a priestly family, the one who recently passed away. And the head pujari of the temple cannot find a wife because nobody wants to be a pujari's wife living in a small village. And I look at him every time I go, because every year I visit, he's an extremely handsome man, very well off. I mean, the temple is running so well. If he was a pujari in an ISKCON society, somebody would have married him. I know they would have.
Did you invite him to ISKCON, Mataji?
I was actually thinking we could find a wife for this guy. And the poor guy, there are some rules and regulations in that temple that a pujari who's not married cannot do certain things, you know. So he has to get it done from like other pujaris and things like that. So I was just flabbergasted. There's such a nice looking pujari, such a nice man who knows all the shastras, you know, and the temple is doing very well. You know, he lives in a very nice, you know, relatively nice house in India and everything, but he cannot find a wife. So just had to comment that what Pyari said, to live in a hut.
Yeah, so I guess living by the Connecticut River would probably be a little harder.
So well-to-do, handsome pujaris in India are not finding wives.
Hare Krishna.
So I will add my experience also about, so I recently got Brahmin initiation. Actually, you know, in India, when we appear in exams, at least at my time when I was in school, so there used to be like, you know, distinction if you get 85% and above, and the minimum passing mark was 40%. And then if you are below 40%, and if you are like 1 or 2 or 3 marks short of it, then you are given grace marks to pass. So similarly, in my case, when I was given Brahmin initiation, you know, I was clearly not qualified, but I got the grace of Pyari Prabhu. He wrote an email to Guru Maharaj that, you know, we really need Brahmins in the temple. And he wrote a big email to Maharaj and so many things. I don't know how much of that was true, but Maharaj then agreed to give me and my wife Brahmin initiation. So when we were given initiation, so Maharaj told me 2 things about, you know, about Brahmin, you know, what to do and what not to do. So first he quoted verse 18.42 of the Bhagavad Gita, where Shamo Damastapaha Shaucham Kshantir Arjavam Evacha Jnanam Vijnanam Astikyam Brahma Karma Swabhavajam. So basically that is the qualities of Brahmins that are mentioned. So Maharaj said, at least try to develop these qualities. If you may not even have those qualities today, but at least try to develop that. So basically peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. So these are the qualities that are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita for a Brahmin. Besides that, he also said that you should also try to do some deity worship, because that is generally why people are given Brahmin initiation in ISKCON, you know, if they have to go on altar. And also sometimes for cooking service, Brahmins are preferred for cooking service. So Maharaj said that you should try to do some deity worship, you know, if you are taking Brahmin initiation now. And of course, preaching work. You know, Astikyam is, you know, basically Astikyam means one who believes in Vedas, one who follows the Vedic religion, and he also gives knowledge, you know, Jnanam and Vijnanam. So he distributes that knowledge. So these are the things that Guru Maharaj told me but he didn't tell me that I should give up my job and, you know, then just live on, what is that, dana, you know, go for asking dana from people.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Go ahead, Prabhu.
Yeah, just I wanted to add one comment for Dev Prabhu's question, if you allow me.
Yeah, please, Prabhu, go ahead.
So Dev Prabhu's question was like, what is our duty? Like, I mean, what can we do software job or not? Something like that, right? So again, I would like to refer the Sutta Goswami comment. Dharmasya hi apavargasya nartho artha apikalpatte narthasya dharma kaintasya kamo labha smrita. So what Sutta Goswami is saying that? So usually in general, you know, ordinary people are doing dharma, artha, kama. So they perform the dharma for the artha, material gain, and for artha, they will fulfill their sense, their gratification, you know, kama, right? But Sutta Goswami is saying that dharmasya apavargasya, one's duty should be one should perform the duty for the liberation, not for artha and kama. So directly one should think for moksha. Even though, right, for the duty, one performs his occupational duty and he get the artha. some money or anything. So he should use that artha for the moksha only, not for kama. So that's what he says, that the translation goes like this: all occupational engagement are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, even one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use the material gain to cultivate sense gratification. So in that context, so even though we are doing software engineer or doctor, anything, whatever the artha we get, we should use that artha for moksha, not for the kama. If that is we are doing, then we are in a right path. Because in this age, we don't have a varnasrama dharma ashram. So at least whatever duty we perform, if you utilize the duty for the service of the Lord and think for the moksha, that is the right way, what Sutta Goswami is saying, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. But how are you connecting it to the Brahmin question that he asked?
He's asking like,
so the question was for Brahmins. Generally, it is said that they should not be doing salaried jobs. They should basically give knowledge to others, and whatever donation they receive, they should subsist on that. So, I mean, I understood your point, but how are you connecting that to
I'm
the Brahmin?
connecting what I understood, like what kind, because we are doing multiple jobs, right? We do not have a varnasrama, trishram, kshatriya like that. So what is the duty for us? Like if we are being a software engineer or whatever different profession, how should we do our prescribed duty? That's what I think he asked, that I believe, or if I understood wrong, then yeah.
Okay. All right. Prabhuji, are you okay with the answer or you have further questions?
No, thank you, Prabhuji. I think, I have some points now to reflect upon. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. I think Srinivas Acharya Prabhu wanted to add something. Go ahead, Prabhuji, please. You are also Brahmin, so you are you can very well answer it. Yeah, go ahead, Prabhuji, please.
Krishna, Ganapati, Govind, Prabhu, Pyariman, Prabhu, all the Vaishnavas, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Prabhupada. Now, this is wonderful discussion. One thing I wanted to add is specifically, you already mentioned the 1842. There's also another thing that Prabhupada often cites about Brahmana, the 6 things, Shat Karma, which is basically Patan, Patan, Yajan, Yajan, and Dana, Pratigrahan. So he is engaged in study of the Shastra and he's teaching the Shastra. And he is performing sacrifices and engaging others, teaching others that as well. And he gives charity and he accepts charity. So these are the 6 things of a Brahmana. And particularly, I mean, when it comes to ISKCON, we are a Vaishnava mission. So therefore, Vaishnavism is the prominent quality in us. Of course, Varnashrama we definitely use, but the purpose of it is for the sake of, Varnashrama Charavata. It is for the purpose of Haritoshanam, to please the Lord. So Vaishnava element is the prominent element, but at the same time, we use these Brahmanical things for the purpose of devotion. And when it comes to the comparison, though, a Vaishnava is always considered to be greater than a Brahmana because he's not, a Brahmana could just be at a Brahman level, right? Brahma Janati iti Brahmana. But a Vaishnava is much more advanced. So therefore, we could see in the Varnashrama system, he may be doing Shudra physical activities, but he can be greater than a Brahmana because of his devotion. That's where Shat Karma Nipuno Vipro Mantra Tantra Visharada, even that person, so great he may be, but Shvapacha, a Chandala, is greater than him because he's a Vaishnava. So that Sadachara Sampanna Vaishnava, a Vaishnava with proper behavior who is engaged in the service of the Lord, is always considered greater. So therefore, like Parimohan Prabhu was talking about being practical. So our practicality is connected to for the pleasure of the Lord. I believe in this chapter somewhere Prabhupada writes, my disciples who are working in the factories and engaging their salary in Krishna service, they are also sannyasis. They are as good as sannyasis. I don't remember the exact word. So when he's saying sannyasi is naturally a Brahmana. So therefore, that's the prominent element in our movement. And besides that, particularly for second initiated devotees, the character must be more refined, right? In terms of their food habits, being clean, taking bath twice a day. And naturally, if that person is engaged in worshiping the deity, he does that anyways. And his food habits, not going around and eating in restaurants and stuff, and making sure taking the prasadam, who cooked it is also important. A brahmana, typically, Prabhupada gave this example. I think it was, he said there were brahmanas who became police officers or something, and Prabhupada said they used to bring their own stoves and cook their own food. So we find some of these, like Prabhupada says. But strictly speaking, a brahmana actually, because a brahmana is by nature independent, in a sense, in Varnashrama, a brahmana is not under the governance of the king. They are kind of, independent in nature, brahmanas. And the reason they could be independent is because they're detached. And therefore that quality of detachment should also be prominent in a brahmana. This Prabhupada says a brahmana never works for a shudra. As a shudra, he can be a kshatriya, come up to the point of vaishya, but he'll go and sell pakoras or something, but he will not work for somebody. I remember Prabhupada saying that also. I mean, a strict smarta type brahmana, they won't, because he's independent. He doesn't want to be controlled, like that. So these are few thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you, Broji. That was a very nice comment. I also wanted to just mention quickly. I also was reading. You mentioned that Vaishnava is higher than Brahmin. So Prabhupada quotes, I believe Rupa Goswami. I don't exactly remember which. He quotes one of the Goswamis, and then he writes that actually a Vaishnava who has bad character, his company should be avoided. He should be given respect, but his company should be avoided. So, I mean, we know that Vaishnava is the person who accepts Lord Vishnu as the supreme, and he kinds of engages in his worship. But it is possible that even a Vaishnava could have some bad qualities, some bad character also. So Prabhupada writes that such a Vaishnava should be avoided. His company should not be taken up. So generally, in our ISKCON society, at least, after the first initiation is done, after that, after few years, when the person is stable, and then after that only we give second initiation. We don't give. So I know there are within Gaudiya Vaishnava itself, first and second initiation can be given together, and some of the other Gaudiya Vaishnava societies, but that is not a practice that ISKCON follows. So after say 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and that too, there are some criteria there nowadays. Nowadays we have the Bhakti Shastri criteria that before taking Brahmanical initiation, you should have done Bhakti Shastri. That basically kinds of gives a credential that understand Shastra, at least the 4 basic books that we have: Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, and Sri Upanishad. So that kinds of gives the philosophical grounding for getting the Brahmin initiation. And then there is also a recommendation has to be given from a temple authority, usually from the temple president. So the temple president kinds of sanctions that, okay, I have been watching this particular person for so many years, and his conduct is decent, he's engaged positively in Krishna's service, he has good character, and I vouch for him, he should be given Brahmanical initiation. So that kind of gives a little bit assurity about his purity, that he is relatively pure, not completely impure. So, and then once the Brahmanical initiation is done, further the Brahmanical qualities, generally the spiritual masters would ask the disciple to try to develop the Brahmanical qualities that are mentioned in the scriptures. And then the idea is that they will live in the relatively pure mode of goodness, and then in that way they will be doing those activities as we mentioned, deity worship, especially in the temple. In our home, there are a lot of devotees who are not Brahmin initiation, but they have deities at home. But at least when they go on the altar in the temple, they are expected to be following a very sattvic lifestyle, and not having any kind of bad attributes, bad qualities, bad association.
Also, Prabhu, I think I don't know whether we should generalize that the Brahmin should not a paid job or something. Because if we say that Kripachar and Dronachar should not qualify for the Brahmins, right? Because they were always with the king. They were always working under the king, and they used to give education to all the kings.
They were okay, so they were not given salaries as such. They were given facilities by the king, and the expectation from them. So Kripacharya was more like a priest. He was not exactly, different dynasties have their, priests. So for example, the priest of Yadu dynasty is, who is that? Anyone would like to answer?
Gargmuni.
Gargmuni, yes. So that is the priest. Similarly, Kripacharya is the priest for the
correct,
the Kurus, and then Dronacharya is kind of the teacher who is teaching, the weapons to the princes there. So it's not that he was getting a salary from the king, but they were kind of given some facilities because they were offering some services to the king.
Correct.
So yes.
But my question is like, it might be cultural change. It happened over the period of time and all, because it's not just that Kripachar and Dronachar. And as we are saying, as engineer and the doctor, even these professions are always belong to Brahman. If you see the olden age also, like other age, because we have Ravan has a Brahmin who was a very good Vad actually, Vadya, and all those quality Anusandhan, all things, all research was done by Brahmins. Right. And so all this qualified. I know that's not everyone was getting paid salary, but again, Dronachar and Kripachar was not getting salary, but again, they were not doing any bhikshatan or any kind of somewhere they used to go somewhere. Like as we are describing here, the Brahmin should be going and asking for the bhikshatan, whatever he gets, and he should live their life like this.
Yeah, but they were getting proper charity from the king, who was Dhritarashtra at that time.
Correct.
So to maintain their lifestyle, and we know the story, right? That Dronacharya was a very poverty-stricken Brahmin, and because he was so poverty-stricken, he first goes to the king, who was Drupad, his friend from his Gurukul, and he asked that, okay, you promised me that you will give half of your kingdom to me. I am here, please give it to me. Because he was so poverty-stricken, he was not even able to provide milk and food for his son, Ashwathama. So his wife, Kripi, was really upset with him. So then Drupad says no, he kinds of insults Dronacharya. And after that, Dronacharya actually, he was so insulted. Then he hears that actually, who is the Parshuram is giving charity to the Brahmins. So he goes to Parshuram, and then Parshuram basically tells him that, okay, you came very late. I have nothing is left now. Everything I have given in charity. I have only two things. My body is there, and my shastras and my astras are there. So you decide what you want to get. So he said, okay, give me your weapons and give me the knowledge to use the weapons. So he gets that knowledge, and then while he was coming back, he kinds of helps the Kuru princes. They were boys at that time, and their ball had dropped into the well. So he helps them to pick out that, with some straws of grass, he picks out the ball. So when Bhishma Dev hears about it, he basically says that he's very qualified to give them the weapon, the knowledge of weapons. So at that time, they kind of not hire in a sense that with a salary, but request him to set up a Gurukul over there and give knowledge. And when he has to set up the Gurukul, they were giving them proper charity at that time. But the whole idea was that he was a very poverty-stricken Brahmin, and that was his motivation, that I should at least get something for my living, and so that I can give it to my wife and my son.
Yes.
Ganapati Govinda Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji, go ahead.
May I make a comment on that? One thing is, in general, probably even today in some South Indian families, working for a king like that is also one of the professions Brahmanas take, but that was kind of considered lower than an independent Brahmana. So even Shukracharya, when the story of his daughter, Devayani and Sharmishta, it comes up, I believe, in the 9th canto, it happens. Shukracharya condemns himself that, because I was being provided facilities by a king like this, now I'm trapped in this thing, you know. And his daughter forces him for certain things, you know. She gets married, and she's actually, I believe, the ancestor of Krishna, Devayani. So he wasn't happy that he had to do that. He felt rather I should have just, you know, lived by collecting some grains in the fields and stuff when the farmers leave it aside. It's called Shiloncha. So that's also a profession for a Brahmana. That's considered to be more advanced than, you know, this kind of thing, being with the king and stuff. So within the Brahmanical occupations, there are gradations, and working for, you know, expecting things from a king, being provided facilities, was also considered not topmost. That's why when Chanakya, he used to just live in a hut for precisely this kind of reason, so that, you know, he could not be influenced by the wealth and everything king is providing.
Yeah, no, very true, Prabhu. Even within the Brahminical society, there are higher caste Brahmins and lower caste Brahmins. So it's very, you know, very difficult to understand. But we have that, you know, there is a story of that Sakshi Gopal, where there are two Brahmins, one is higher caste Brahmin and one is a lower caste Brahmin. Also, that also kind of reminds me, Prabhu, you made a comment earlier that Brahmins are not in the jurisdiction of the king, they're independent, in the sense that they don't have to follow the law of the land. But actually we do see in scriptures at least two examples that I can remember. That first is where you know, a Brahmin, a Shudra and a Vaishya, they three join together and commit a murder, and these three are brought to the Kuru assembly for justice. So first Duryodhana was given an opportunity, and after that Yudhishthir was given an opportunity to pass judgment what should be their punishment. So at that time Brahmin does get the highest punishment. That is one. Second, I wanted to mention about we have this example in the Adi Parva of Mahabharata, where we have this sage, I'm missing the name of the sage, who basically, there was a thief.
Manduka Rishi.
Yeah, Manduka Rishi basically. So there are some thieves who steals from the king, and they put the things near the sage and they run away, and the king's soldiers, they come and they arrest this sage and take him to the king. And then after a few days in the captivity, then the king releases him and asks for, you know, sorry, etc. And then the king basically goes to Yamraj and curses Yamraj, and that's how the Yamraj comes down as he becomes a Shudra, who is basically Vidur in Mahabharata. So they are kind of in the jurisdiction of the king, and they have to follow the law of land, I believe. At least there are some examples like that.
So when I said that the point is not necessarily they are on the jurisdiction, but the point is if they do not follow their own dharma, because one of the duty of a king is to ensure Varnashrama dharma is being followed. So when a Brahmana gives up his Varna duty and he engages in abominable activities, at that time he becomes liable to be punished by the king. You see it? You see the point?
No, I see it, but if everybody is following their duties perfectly, then there is no need for any justice, etc. Right? You don't need to go to jail for that. Only when you do something wrong, then the king has to pass judgments, right?
So this topic comes up in Prithu Maharaj when he gives his instructions, because he himself is a king. There's a nice chapter in the Bhagavatam where he discusses that. But yes, when a Brahmana does commit abominable activities, it is the duty of the king, because the king has to protect the dharma. So that means at that point the Brahmana has deviated. And in the first canto also it comes up when Draupadi and Ashwatthama instance, first canto of the Bhagavatam, what are the punishments that can be given to a Brahmana. And the conclusion is they can drive him out of the village, right? And so Ashwatthama gets driven out. Of course, he was considered Brahma Bandhu. There's a nice dialogue that happens at the end. They will drive him out of the village. But a king cannot tax a Brahmana. There are certain things, a king, and he has free access. When he goes, you see when Sudama goes, nobody stops him. Things like that. So a Brahmana has that kind of independence precisely because he was detached and he's following properly. But if he does commit abominable activities, then it's the duty of the king, right, to make people know that this guy is not following proper Brahmanical dharma.
But being driven out of the village or the vicinity of the kingdom, it is not an ordinary punishment. I think Prabhupada only writes in on the purports that it is just next to execution. It is a very severe punishment. If someone is given that punishment, that you have been, you have to go out of the village or the vicinity of the kingdom into the forest or wherever, that is just like next to execution. You are not being executed for whatever reason, but that is the next most severe punishment in the scriptures that are mentioned.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because he was doing abominable activities, right? So there is distinction. What I meant is in terms of how even during punishment, how a Brahmana is dealt.
All right. Okay, I think we had a very good discussion today about this question that was asked by Dev Prabhu. So any other comments, questions before we wrap up?
Thank you for sharing those comments, Prabhuji. That was helpful.
Very nice answers too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhyabhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Koti Vaishnava